وعليكم السلام أخي نصر الدين وعليكم السلام. الحمد لله الحمد لله. I'm doing very good. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. Please. Sure. Yes. 18. Uh-huh. I think it disconnected momentarily, but now it's back. Now it's good. Uh-huh. Yes. Mhm. 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 That's all correct. Sure. What you said is a very brief summary. Initially, of course, I had no intention, no desire to translate the Quran. It did not even cross my mind. I think had somebody told me you will be translating the Quran, I would have rejected the idea. Of course, I'm not capable. This is for scholars. This is for advanced research, for capable people. So deciding to translate the Quran came way down the road later on. Absolutely. I was practicing da'wah in very many places. At one point, I started doing da'wah in prison. And I was actually there inside the prison when I handed an inmate a copy. Excuse me. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Electricity goes in and out over here. I was inside the prison when I basically decided I have to translate the Quran. At the time, and that was maybe 15 years ago, the translations that were available on the market were very, very difficult to read. And people in jail, in my experience, are people who are typically uneducated from very poor background. Definitely, they cannot read difficult translations of the Quran. So the purpose, what triggered me, is my inability to find a translation that is smooth, easy to read, yet at the same time accurate. No, I was visiting, giving da'wah there. And the da'wah was like a class and then one talk with the imam. Sure. At the time, there was Yusuf Ali was popular. Sheikh Yusuf Ali. Translation by Shakir was popular. Translation by Sahih International International came little down the road. It was popular. Way before there was a translation by Dawood that I read multiple times and gave copies. That was popular. There was a translation by Rashad Khalifa. It's controversial, but the English of it was good. That was popular in some domains, and few others that don't come to mind right now. Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry for interrupting you. This was crucial. Every translation I started reading, I was very excited about, thinking, this is the one. Because I was giving da'wah, I was giving copies, so I was always searching for the copy that I will be giving away. And in my opinion, at that time, my experience, every translation had strength, yet every translation eventually disappointed me. So with time, I generated an idea about what should a good translation be. Sure. For example, the translation of Sheikh Yusuf Ali, it was very popular, yet it's in very old English. English that people don't speak today. So there, in my opinion, there is no need to use a language that people don't use today. So that was basically a disappointing point. There were translations that were good, yet they become good by inserting words or phrases in parentheses. And that really upset me. It even bothered me. And I kept asking myself, saying to myself, the Quran doesn't say that. Whatever is in parentheses, whatever is in brackets or text, the Quran doesn't say it. Why is the translator inserting those words? Okay, maybe the translator is inserting to clarify, to interpret, and sometimes they change the meaning. But Allah did not say that. So this is something that really bothered me. There was a good translation, but it was copyrighted and it's only sold, and you cannot publish it, you cannot put it on a website, you cannot put it in PDF file. So that was negative. I wanted a translation that anybody can publish freely. Yeah, mostly, grammatical style, the sentence. So there is a good translation, yet the sentences are so long. Like when you're reading, you have to look at the sentence and read it multiple times in order to understand it. Although the Arabic has alamat al-waqf, where you pause and don't consider it a comma or a semicolon or a colon or even a period, but the translator just has sentences that are 2 or 3 lines long, and the reader has to read it multiple times and focus and try to break it apart to understand it. So basically, that makes the translation, in my opinion, not positive. Yes. Even today, I read current translations, and for example, "Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar." Okay, so the translator after "Inna a'tainaka," he inserts "O Prophet." So "Inna a'tainaka, O Prophet al-Kawthar." So the Arabic doesn't say "Inna a'tainaka ya Rasul" or ya Nabi al-Kawthar. So why did the translator put that word in, although it's not in the Arabic text? So somebody who knows the Arabic text may say, okay, this was inserted. But a person who is not aware of the Quran, doesn't know the Quran, may think, this is from the creator, although it's not. So this is an example of, in my opinion, something that is translated inaccurately. You know, after I fell in love with the Quran, basically I was spending my days, my life, trying to understand it, trying to contain it, trying to convey it. And that really taught me the Quran. And because I live in the United States and I speak English, of course, and I speak even with my family English, so my English language is, I consider it good. And I was raised in Lebanon. My native language is Arabic. And I went to Arabic schools, of course, here in Lebanon. I know Quranic Arabic. And I studied the Quran. So those three things, knowing the Quran, knowing English, knowing Arabic, are, you know, important. Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I see translators who are in maybe not living in the West, not living in a country where language is spoken. You know, they may have studied English, they may be professors in English, yet the English they use, you know, they use words that are not used by the common person in the West, and that makes those translations also hard to read. You know, like words that basically were popular 100 years ago, now they are not being used anymore. So the person reads this translation and encounters these words and really cannot understand them. Absolutely, absolutely. Learning is important. Learning is good. Understanding the theory of something is very important. In my case, I did not go to school to study translating, and I did not go to school to study the Quran. Here is a sentence in Arabic, and we're gonna convey it in English. Okay, so basically, you can learn how to do this at school, or maybe you can think about it and try to figure out a way to say the same sentence in a different language. No, you're doing great. Thank you. You're doing great. In my opinion, if we want to answer a very pure answer from a very purest person, I would say the Quran is not translatable. And I encountered sentences, verses, ayahs that basically cannot be written in English. But with some modification, with some impurity, we can put it in English. Absolutely, absolutely. And I heard somebody say a while back, every translation is an approximation. Yet some approximations are better than others. So my task was to basically generate an approximation that is better than the others. Is it 100% the Quran? Absolutely not. It cannot be. You know, like the hadith, basically, right? Indirectly, yes, because I was also familiar with the other translations. So, and the other translations do use do use that. But directly, I did not. I did not go to other books in order to translate the Quran. I think it could have painted the translation. You know, like added a tint on it. You know, like let's say I have a picture and you put, you know, like a yellow tint or a gray tint on it. Basically, it gives it a different color. It can. And I tried not to do that. And in my opinion, if a person wants to write an interpretation, you know, that's very good. But my task was to call it a translation, a pure translation. And as a result, I was just translating and not interpreting and not going to other books. Sure. Is that a term that came from me? Okay. Maybe you're referring to a later translation that I produced. I produced more than one translation of the Quran. They are close. They have the same style maybe, but multiple translation. The most recent one, I used artificial intelligence to translate, and that was where I used the hybrid approach, where it's not AI that is translating, but it's a human and AI translating simultaneously. And that was, I think, where I refer to the hybrid approach. You know, every translation I produce does not have a new meaning. I focused on the language. I focused on conveying the meaning of the Quran in simple and clear sentences. Also in the AI generated translation. And it's again, I take that. It's not an AI generated translation. You know, considering two persons translating together. And this was how that project was. It's like a hybrid. This is where I use the hybrid word. Basically, it's a hybrid between myself and the AI. It may, but let me say that the word God is not specific to Christianity. It came about before Christianity reached Europe. So it's an older word. Today, the word God can it can convey, most of the time it conveys God, deity, the deity. Jewish people use it in the West, Christians use it in the West, atheists, when they're rejecting the concept of God, use it. It is not specific to Christianity. Now, if a Christian person is reading it and he reads in the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, he may think this is God, the creator, the one God, and he may think something else. Absolutely, there is that possibility. I think in general, it is better to have it than not to have it. The other side of the coin, if a person in the West is reading in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, he may think Allah is some, Arabic God in the desert, leading battles between tribes. And it's not the case. I came to the conclusion that it's good to have both. Muslims prefer to read, of course, in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, and non-Muslims or people who are new to Islam prefer the other one. And go ahead. And initially I did not have the plan to have both. This came out of need because people asked me. First I did the one version and people asked me, said, "Oh, brother, why is it this way and not that way?" And then I decided, it's good to have both. Even when I'm speaking with people, let's say I'm speaking with my daughter, okay, in English, and I'm referring to Allah, I use the word God. And this typically happens in the West. Even Muslims, when they're talking to a non-Muslim about Allah, they use the word God. You know what? It is maybe impossible for me to keep track. I used to keep track and feel good. Oh, more downloaded and more came to it. But then it became so widespread that I stopped, counting, even checking on the numbers. So unfortunately, I don't have a number. It's in the millions. It's in the millions of downloads and people visiting the website. Absolutely. Let me correct you. It is possible if I were to put counters, how many downloads. I mean, this is possible, but at the beginning I did not put that. Still don't have the downloads. I can know how many people visited the website per day, per month, per year. That is possible. That I have now. Yes, way back, that was very important to me. But when all these questions were answered, it is successful. People like it. People have positive impression of it. People are telling another about it, it stopped concerning me, how widespread and how much it's spread. Mhm. Mhm. You know what? Some things in the Quran are ambiguous. Some things can be read in multiple different ways by different people. In my understanding, if two people want to read the same sentence differently and both are correct, then let it be. And if I were to put a footnote or things in parentheses, I would be forcing my own understanding of that verse, and that is something I do not want to do. So if something is ambiguous, I left it as it is. If something is unclear, I left it as it is. If something can be read different ways, I left it as it is. Maybe not. I mean, maybe not. Again, a translation is an approximation, but we're going to try to approximate very well. Okay? We're not going to reach the Quran. We're going to basically approach it. And the more you approach it, the better we are. Recently, somebody wrote me, he said, brother, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. I translated it as, we have given you abundance. Like Kawthar from Kasir. So a good word, in my opinion, is abundance. And he said, oh, this is not, doesn't mean abundance. It means some place in paradise. So if one translator want to translate it Kawthar, I think it's correct. If another translator want to translate it abundance, I think it's also correct. I think I deviated from your question. We are not perfect. I think we are never going to translate the Quran perfectly, but the more we try, the more we approach it, the better we help other people. Yes and no. I mean, of course, mistakes are a problem. Errors in a translation are a problem. Mistranslations are a problem. But in a case like this, one person writes it in English, Kawthar, and another person writes it abundance. Can you argue that one is false and one is not? I think they can be both correct. Okay. It came in phases. I was again for a long time studying the Quran, trying to grasp it, trying to acquire it, and trying to convey it. And then there was a period of time I was doing da'wah by writing messages and letters to other people. And I saw myself retranslating. Basically, I get a translation and something I don't like in that translation, or that's not translated correctly, or the English is difficult. And I was translating myself before I sent the letter. And then there was a time I decided, okay, I'm gonna translate the Quran myself, and really I was unable. Basically I started, and then I realized this project is not for me. So, and then studying the different translations told me how a good translation should be. I developed an image of how a good translation should be. So this is where most of the time went. Now, the last time when I decided to translate it and really sat behind my computer and was doing the actual work, I think that was 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. And I was not working full time on that, but maybe half my days. Yes, it took 2 years of work. No, I don't. I don't. We need to narrow, if I understood you correctly, we need to narrow the gap between the translation and the real thing. Go ahead. Absolutely, absolutely. And in my opinion, I have always thought that a translation should evolve with time. I always had that belief. And it's easy to figure out. You read old translations and, they don't apply today. The English language drifts with time. It evolves with time. Words change meaning with time. Sentence structures change with time. So I always thought a translation should evolve, and I have kept that. I did not just translate it and freeze it in time. I have always generated in other revisions, other translations, and I'm still doing that. Okay, so this is a tricky issue. The translation became very widespread, and I was certain if I were to update it, change the website, people are going to complain because they're so used to it. So no, I did not update it. I created a parallel one. So in a way, I updated it, but I published it elsewhere. And now we have the two of them, or three of them, or four of them that a person can read. Absolutely. There is one published at corequran.com. And the latest one is published only in print, and it's called Quran in English for ages 9 to 99. And this uses very simple English for people who are, for young adults, or for children, or for adults. And the most recent translation is published at surequran.com. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Muslims are struggling to teach children Islam. They are struggling to teach their children the Quran. And absolutely, and the words should be different. Like you and I, our vocabulary is broad, but children have a narrow or a small vocabulary. Plus, you and I can read complicated sentences, and we can remember a previous sentence, and we can understand complex subjects. Children can't. So, if we are going to translate for children, so the vocabulary has to be limited. But now you lose fidelity. Okay, so we are absolutely gonna lose some fidelity. For example, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. It can become in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most caring. Okay, is it the same? No. Is it a good translation? No. Is it good to have? Some people will tell you, yeah, it's good to have. So, absolutely, absolutely. So maybe we put a footnote or we put an introduction that says this has some interpretations, some explanations, some impurity in order to make it accessible for children. Oh yeah. Yes, yes. That's while translating. Again, my task was to make an easy to read, clear translation. And sometimes I realize I have to simplify the meaning or reduce some of the meaning to gain clarity. And I avoided that. So I have always chose accuracy versus clarity if I have to choose between the two. It may have been helpful, and it may have changed my understanding of some of the Quran, and I may have translated it differently. And this is something I did not want to do. I did not want to be influenced by sources outside the Quran. Because I wanted, go ahead. Possibly, I did not do that. In my understanding, the Quran is clear. Allah made it clear. If we know the language, if we put time and effort and thought, we should basically understand it. If something we cannot understand, and when I was reading way back, there was plenty I was not understanding. I was just skipping over it. And then I read the Quran second time and I understand more, and then I understand more. Are the tafsirs important? They are, but say a tafsir was written 600 years ago, and it was great 600 years ago. Is it still great today? I kept them as it is. Let him struggle. A person reading an Arabic can see those letters and will struggle. Yeah. Uh-huh. ahead. I have time. I have time. Go ahead. Don't. This is great. This is great. This is really great. That's for a later translation. That's for a recent. Absolutely. That's for a reason. No. Absolutely. The first one, there was no AI at the time. There was no grammar checking tools. So that was purely manual work. The most recent translation, I used AI to simplify some language, some sentences. Yes, yes, you can go read it at Quran.com. SUREQURAN.com. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a different translation. But the ideas are the same, clear, easy to read, nothing in parentheses, no footnotes. Allah and God simultaneously, my same approach. But the sentence structure, some of the vocabulary is different. Difficult question. In my understanding, something popular is not necessarily good. So I can tell you what's popular, but I shouldn't answer. Maybe allow me not to answer this question. I written a book recently, a small booklet titled "The Truth About Death: Mortality Unveiled," and this was published very recently, maybe just 2 months ago. And it's not about the Quran, but of course, the information is from the Quran. And this is written for the Westerner, not for the Muslim. I experienced that Westerners struggle with the idea of death, of mortality. Not Westerners, non-Muslims. I mean, the Quran teaches us a lot about death. But people outside Islam, they're confused about the subject. They fear it, misconceptions. So this is what this book is about. Clear those misconceptions. Absolutely. And when they face death, when they're, you can face death different ways, and every person faces it. Then they're confused, or they're upset, or they're angry, or they're frustrated. They don't understand it, and they can have different ideas about what happens when we die, what happens after we die. Contradictory ideas within the same mind. Alhamdulillah, as a Muslim community, we don't have those issues. Mhm, 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 mhm. And I'm translating, and I'm not interpreting. It's not my own words. I'm just putting this book in a different language. And, and in my opinion, strike does not mean beat. You can strike an example. You can strike an example. Okay, so does that mean beat the example? Of course not. So daraba, in my understanding, translates very well into strike, and strike does not necessarily mean beat. It's a difficult subject. When I first translated it, when I first published it, a lady contacted me and she was so angry with me. And she told me, you did great, but you dropped the ball here. And I still remember the exact word. She told me, you dropped the ball here. Basically, you failed here. And I tried to explain to her that basically this is not up to me. And in her opinion, it should be cast them away or, whatever, something else. And what do you do? This is one of the challenges of translating. Do you massage the words or do you keep them as is? If you want to call it a translation, it's my duty to keep it as is, regardless. Yes, I'm aware of a lady who translated the Quran, even more than one lady, and I did read her translation a while back. And I don't think there should be an issue here. If a male translator is translating honestly and a female translator is translating honestly, no big deal, no issue. I cannot remember the name anymore. It was a while back. Her translation is published, so I don't remember the name. If you tell me the names, I can tell you which one, but I think I have. I think I have. Actually, there is another one, an American lady who translated the Quran. Uh, Her name is okay. Allah, Allah. Very good. Very good. Of course, the first translation I read was by an Orientalist. It had a blue cover. I bought it from the bookstore in America. That was the only one I could put my hands on. Another one by Radwin, and another one by Dawood. I read many of those, and I was surprised that they're translating honestly as well. They weren't trying to bash Islam, attack Islam, put Islam down. What I read, they were doing their best to translate the Quran. I have, but I don't remember its theme right now and how it differs from the others. Of course, of course, of course. The verses that deal with inheritance, I found them to be difficult to translate. Like, wow, there is so much information in a short space. And I was always worried, how am I not to make mistakes here? It's so intricate, so dense. It was difficult to translate. They were difficult to translate. Uh, there is the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah about, let's see, وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينُ على ملك سليمان. This is so dense with information. I found it so difficult to even grasp and then difficult to translate. So this is one that stays in my mind. Surah 12, Yusuf is also a lot of details, who said what to whom, that's difficult. So these are some examples. If you have to love the Quran, you have to love to convey it. You have to have the English of the person you're translating to, or the French or the Spanish. I mean, you have to have the language of the person you are translating to. And you have to know Arabic well, although some translators translated and they don't know Arabic. I won't comment. They could have produced great translations. Loving the Quran, wanting to be with the Quran all the time, I think that's fundamental, because it takes a long time and you're always with these verses. If you don't love being with them all the time, then it becomes very difficult. Something very important: translate only when you are very focused, when your mind is clear. If you're a little tired, if your mind is a little foggy, drop it. And I did that early on. Like, whenever I feel tired, I don't translate. When my mind is a little foggy, I don't translate. If I'm not super focused, because I know I'll make mistakes. If I'm not super focused, I'll make mistakes. So I did not translate. So examine your state of mind and know when to translate and when not to work with the Quran. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for example, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Okay, how different are they? Which one is merciful, which one is compassionate, or is it gracious? Maybe we don't know. So maybe Allah is emphasizing He is merciful and He is very merciful, or He is compassionate and very compassionate, or merciful and compassionate. And what if you put one before the other? Does it make a difference? So, this is an issue, in my opinion. It's not a big deal. The user is getting the message. So here are two words that are at the beginning of the Quran, and they're difficult to understand, to translate, because they're so close. Rahman, Rahim. How different are they? Which one? As-Sami' al-Alim, the hearer, the knower, or the all-hearing, the all-knowing, or the all-hearer, the all-knowing. So What do you mean? I didn't get your point. Mhm. You informed me that this can be one word. Good. This is very exciting, very interesting. In that case, spontaneously, I will tell you, I'm not aware of a English word that translates Sami and Ali as one word. So what do you do? So yeah, then the translation. Sure, sure. Mhm. An online session like on a specific subject or okay, let me think about it and let's communicate and see what to do in this regard. Thank you, brother Nasr-eddine. This was very positive, very exciting, very interesting, and I appreciate this time and your questions. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.